Charlotte, North Carolina. October 4th, 1997. A humid Saturday night. The air crackled with the energy of a city relaxing after a long week. Unbeknownst to its residents, this night would etch itself into Charlotte's memory, becoming a milestone in its history. Not for reasons of triumph or celebration, but for an audacious crime, the Loomis Fargo heist. At the heart of this story was David Gant, an unlikely mastermind. A seemingly ordinary vault supervisor at Loomis Fargo, Gant was about to orchestrate the unthinkable. Driven by a potent cocktail of ambition, love, and a yearning for a life less ordinary, he would attempt to steal $17.3 million. The plan was audacious, the stakes incredibly high. Gant's actions would have far-reaching consequences, impacting not only his life, but also the lives of those around him. The city of Charlotte would watch, captivated and bewildered, as the drama unfolded, forever associating itself with one of the most intriguing heists in American history. The stage was set, the players were in position, and as the clock ticked past midnight, the seemingly ordinary night in Charlotte began its descent into chaos. The legend of the Great Charlotte Heist was about to be written. David Gant knew the Loomis Fargo vault like the back of his hand. Day after day, he oversaw the movement of millions of dollars, the constant hum of the counting machines, a dull symphony in his workday routine. The money, a symbol of power and freedom, taunted him, fueling a growing discontent within him. He wasn't a criminal mastermind, not by any stretch. He was a simple man with simple desires, a better life, excitement, perhaps even love. But somewhere along the line, these desires morphed into an insatiable hunger, a dangerous ambition that whispered promises of escape from his mundane reality. The vault, a symbol of security and impregnability, ironically became Gant's canvas for rebellion. The metallic smell, the cold, sterile environment, it all fueled his desire for something more. And as he stared at the stacks of cash day in and day out, a dangerous thought began to take root in his mind. A thought that would spiral into a life-altering decision. He would rob the vault. David Gant's life was a study in contrasts. By day, he was the picture of ordinariness, a cog in the machinery of a large corporation. By night, he grappled with his own desires, his heart yearning for something more than the monotonous routine that had become his life. His job at Loomis Fargo, while stable and relatively well-paying, offered little in the way of excitement or fulfillment. The repetitive tasks, the endless counting of money that wasn't his, gnawed at him, amplifying his sense of dissatisfaction. He longed for adventure, for a life free from the constraints of his dead-end job. He craved the finer things in life, the fast cars, the luxurious vacations, the freedom to pursue his passions without the constant worry of financial limitations. And as he watched the money flow in and out of the vault, a dangerous thought began to take hold. What if he could simply take what he desired? What if he could use his access to the vault to escape the drudgery of his existence? The seed of the heist, once planted, grew rapidly in the fertile ground of Gant's discontent. He began to entertain thoughts he knew were reckless, even dangerous. But the allure of freedom, of finally taking control of his life, proved too strong to resist. He knew he couldn't pull it off alone. He needed help, someone he could trust, someone who shared his desire for a life less ordinary. Enter Kelly Campbell, a former colleague at Loomis Fargo, and the object of Gant's affections. Together, they hatched a plan as audacious as it was reckless. Gant would remain behind after hours, ostensibly to work late. Once the coast was clear, he would load the money into a company van and drive it to a predetermined location. Campbell and their accomplices would be waiting. It was a simple plan, reliant on timing and trust. But as with all things that seemed too good to be true, there were cracks in the facade, hidden dangers that threatened to derail their grand scheme. The night of the heist arrived thick with tension and anticipation. Gant, his nerves on edge, followed the meticulously crafted plan. He loaded the money, an unimaginable fortune, into the back of the Loomis Fargo van, his heart pounding in his chest. He met Campbell and the others as planned, their faces illuminated by the headlights of their waiting vehicles. The air was thick with a mixture of excitement and fear, the weight of their actions settling upon them like a shroud. They sped away into the night, the city lights blurring into streaks of color as they put distance between themselves and the scene of the crime. Gaunt, finally free from the confines of the vault, felt a surge of exhilaration, mixed with a growing sense of unease. They had the money, but their escape was far from over. The authorities would soon be on their trail, and the clock was ticking. The initial thrill of the heist, the adrenaline rush of success, began to fade as reality set in. The enormity of their actions, the consequences that awaited them, loomed large, casting a dark shadow over their newfound wealth. Gant and Campbell had planned to start new lives, escaping to a tropical paradise where they could enjoy their ill-gotten gains. They envisioned a life of luxury and ease, far removed from the ordinary lives they had left behind. But paradise, as it so often does, came with a hefty price tag. The constant fear of discovery, the paranoia that gnawed at their sanity, the realization that their actions had consequences that extended far beyond themselves, began to chip away at their dreams of a carefree existence. The money, once a symbol of freedom, now felt like a chain, binding them to a life of secrecy and uncertainty. The life they had envisioned, the life they had risked everything for, was slipping away, replaced by a growing sense of dread. The disappearance of $17.3 million didn't go unnoticed for long. The FBI, their interest piqued by the sheer audacity of the heist, descended upon Charlotte, their presence casting a long shadow over the city. Leading the investigation was Special Agent Stanley McKay, a seasoned veteran with a reputation for tenacity and an unyielding commitment to justice. McKay, intrigued by the case and the audacity of the perpetrators, vowed to bring them to justice, no matter the cost. He meticulously pieced together the events leading up to the heist, interviewing witnesses, analyzing security footage, and following every lead, no matter how insignificant it seemed. The pressure mounted, the media frenzy surrounding the case intensifying the scrutiny on McKay and his team. But McKay, undeterred, remained focused on the task at hand, driven by an unwavering belief that even the most cunning criminals leave a trail, and he was determined to find it. As the investigation gained momentum, the net began to close in on Gant and his accomplices. Their lavish spending, their attempts to outrun their past, only served to draw more attention to their activities. Gant, separated from Campbell and increasingly isolated, found himself alone and adrift in Mexico. The paradise he had envisioned was now a prison, his newfound wealth a constant reminder of his folly. The FBI, their investigation leading them closer to Gant's whereabouts, finally caught up with him in a small coastal town. He was arrested without incident, his dreams of a life on the run crumbling around him. The capture of Gant marked a turning point in the case, but the investigation was far from over. McKay and his team, their sights now set on the remaining accomplices, prepared for the final act of this real-life crime drama. The trial of David Gant and his accomplices was a media spectacle. The courtroom was packed with journalists, curious onlookers, and those whose lives had been touched by the audacious heist. The prosecution presented a compelling case, detailing the meticulously planned heist and the web of deceit spun by Gant and his accomplices. The defense, in turn, attempted to portray Gant as a pawn, a misguided soul manipulated by those he trusted. The jury listened intently as the drama unfolded, weighing the evidence and the testimonies before them. The fate of Gant and his accomplices rested in their hands, the weight of their decision palpable in the hushed courtroom. After days of deliberation, the jury reached a verdict: guilty. The courtroom erupted in a cacophony of gasps and murmurs as the judge read out the sentences, bringing an end to one of the most captivating chapters in Charlotte's history. The Great Charlotte Heist, a tale of audacity, betrayal, and ultimately the futility of crime, left an indelible mark on the city and those whose lives it touched. David Gant, once an anonymous vault supervisor, became a symbol of both audacity and folly. His story served as a cautionary tale, a reminder that the allure of easy money often leads to a path of destruction. The city of Charlotte, once caught in the grip of the heists drama, moved on, the memory of that audacious night fading into the annals of its history. The Loomis Fargo branch, once a fortress breached, continued its operations, a silent sentinel to the audacious crime that had taken place within its walls. And as for the $17.3 million, much of it remains unrecovered. A phantom fortune forever linked to the legend of the Great Charlotte Heist.